Can you help us understand the scope or the scale of food waste, especially when it comes to things like fruits and veggies here in Canada, or you could go as broad as North America as well?
Absolutely. It's very straightforward. We throw away, as Canadians, 45% of every produce or fruits and vegetable that will come here, imported, or that will grow internally, right? And that's almost half of it. If we look at food waste in general, like all the food waste, like produce, grains, everything, it's about a third, a little bit more than a third. The most optimistic studies show it's the third, and the most pessimistic studies show it's more than 57%. So it's between a third and more than half of the food that is wasted, depending on which study we're looking at. So it's pretty dramatic. If you agree with me. And produce, we know it's 45%.
And before we maybe dive into the concept, because I think a lot of us in sustainability, we tend to throw out terms and assume everybody understands what they are. Could you help us understand this concept of circularity?
Absolutely. So I even didn't know what circular economy was when I started my project. When I started Loop Mission, it was called Loop Juices. It was just common sense to take something that's wasted and retransform it and making sure that it's not being wasted. And then I realized after it was called circular economy, and a teacher in NYU called us and said, "Hey, you're the leaders in circular economy." And I was like, "What is circular economy?" And my wife was like, "Come on, David, I'm getting that phone. I'm going to talk." But so circular economy is very simple. It's the idea that waste shouldn't exist, and it's the creation of value and looking at everything that's being wasted and trying to find a way that it comes back into the cycle. So it's creating value with waste, with something that used to be waste. And it's something that we've always done, right? As a civilization, it's something that it seems like we forgot just a few hundred years ago, with the industrial era. But, if we look at any tribe or any survival, no matter who's the survival person, you will try to use all of your resources as much as possible. But as soon as you become abundant, right, and then you become a little excessive, then resources don't have that same value to you than they used, right? So that's what it is. It's very simple,
Well, it sounds like you were doing it before you even knew what it was. Was there a catalyst moment in terms of creating loops? Maybe now that we have these general terms, bringing it down to your company, was there a catalyst moment where you realized you wanted to tackle this waste issue?
I had a few aha moments, but I think the first one is that I had a restaurant chain, so I will see every day how much we're wasting in the restaurant, mm-hmm. right? The classic. But then I will buy my produce. It was a vegan raw food chain, so it was really based on a lot of produce and vegetables. I will buy my vegetable and produce at the produce warehouse in Marché Central in Montreal. And one day I came to the buyer and I saw a whole line of skids of pineapple that were going to landfill. And I looked at the pineapple and they were fine. Seriously, they were perfectly fine. But I mean, some of them in a few cases started to have some decay and mold, but most of the pineapples, like I would say 95% of them, were actually totally correct. They were ripe and they were actually at the perfect stage for making a smoothie, right? When the bricks and the sugar content is at its highest because it's ripe. And I asked the buyer, I said, the seller, I said, "Hey, can I just buy those pineapples for a lower rate and I'll just freeze them and I'll make smoothies out of it?" And he told me straight up, he said, "No, David, those pineapples are going to landfill and you're buying my organic premium stuff right there that I sell you at a high price." And he said it ironically, but he was serious. He didn't want to sell me the stuff that was sending to landfill. That's when I was shocked. I was like, okay, there's a problem in our industry, right? And it's only a few years later that I got a phone call from the guy that has the same business than this one that told me, "Hey, I'm throwing away lots of produce and I want to do something about it." And I went to visit his warehouse and he showed me everything he was throwing away that day, which was about 16 to 20 tons. And still today at this facility at Courchain-Larose, which is one of the biggest distributor of produce in Canada, they throw away now today a bit more because they've been growing since about 25 tons every day. So every single day in one single produce warehouse, and there's many of them out there, there's 25 tons of produce that goes to landfill for not the right reason, because they're perfectly fine. They're not moldy. They're not disgusting. They're not even crooked or misshaped or misfit. They're just ripe, and they're in overstock. They're a victim of speculation. That's what it is.
Mm. So it's an inventory speculation, but of something that is perishable. So it's resulting in this. Are those your classic sources in terms of where you're getting all your produce? Is it from those warehouses, or are you working with grocers as well? How do you source all the fruits and vegetables that go into Loop juices?
We work with the whole chain, right? We work with from the farms to the distribution warehouses to the grocery banners. But our main, I will say 75% of the produce we rescue come from the middleman, the distributor, the one that actually receives from everywhere around the world, and it will sell it back to grocers. Because that's where sometimes when the fruit gets to their warehouse, there's something about it. Either, the orange peel is going to be a little stain, or the melon is not going to have any stripes, or there's going to be something that's is superficial. It doesn't have any aspect. It's not about the bricks or taste. It's more something that's superficial that's going to be put away. And then there's going to be what's staying in the warehouse that will actually get ripen. That will ripen the warehouse. And when these guys sell a produce that it's already ripe, it's too late, right? Because when your customers are like Metro and Sobeys and Loblaws or Costco and Walmart, those customers, they want something that will last, that has time to go to their warehouse, that has time to be redistributed to all of their single stores, that has time to be put in the back store, that will then be put on the front shelf, that the consumers can take the time to touch and feel and then bring it on. So all of that time of distribution is key, right? So when the fruit is ripe at this center, it's too late. It's too late for sure, right? It's going to be sent to landfill because the space has a value, and if the seller knows that he's never going to sell them, he's going to send them to landfill because it's taking space.
And then when it comes to you, I think this was the craziest part when I was researching your company. You were not receiving all these fruits and vegetables unwrapped and ready to go. There's a whole process where you have to then take it and then process it, correct? For example, if you take a bag of grapes, it's coming to you in that bag, correct? And then your team needs to pull it out.
Exactly. So we're the only food manufacturer that transforms raw ingredients that were supposed to go on a grocery shelf. Meaning that the stuff we receive is actually grade 1. It's the highest grade of food and produce you can find on the market, right? All of food manufacturers never use grade 1 product. They use raw ingredients that are made for food manufacturing, which is the ones that at the farm were selected as not being nice enough to sell on the normal market for consumers, and that got transformed for the food manufacturing. So let's say I'm a smoothie company. I'm going to buy a mango puree that's already aseptic, pasteurized in a barrel that comes from Peru. I'm going to buy strawberry puree or juice that comes from China, and I'm going to assemble this and make a smoothie out of it. I'm going to buy aseptic banana that's already been peeled and squashed. We buy bananas that were going on the shelf. We're going to peel them. We buy strawberries in a clamshell by truckload, and we'll open every single clamshell, put them on a conveyor, and sort them. We'll buy blueberries in clamshell as in truckloads and put them on a conveyor and sort them. That's how crazy we are, right? So but when I say this, people understand really rapidly why nobody does that, right? Because it's extremely complex and it's extremely costly. But we needed to do it because nobody was doing it, right? And before Loop existed, all of these produce had to go to landfill for the simple reason that they were all packaged, right? Nobody's going to have time or mostly the money to sort out the plastic and the cardboard from a box of blueberries to have a good environmental conscience to send it to compost because it's way too costly. And the margins in the food industries are one of the smallest margins in every industry. They are actually the smallest margin out there. So you can't afford it, right?
That's fascinating. I never made the connection that, of course, there's no one on on the distributor end, and it's not to no fault of their own. To, you know, as you're saying, it's cost prohibitive. But I had always just assumed it would go to compost, but clearly it can't go that way. And when you're planning, are you working with suppliers who can supply you X number of bananas per week, mangoes per week? Are you changing what is on your conveyor belt, for lack of a better term, based on what you're receiving that specific week?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're a two-process operation where we're mostly data cruncher. Like we had to become really good at data and knowing seasonality with farmers, distribution, seasonality in terms of trends of consumers also. Because sometimes the overstock doesn't come when it's at the highest peak moment of the farm. It's when it's at the highest peak of the consumers. That's when they want to eat something. That's strange. I didn't know that, right? But yeah, so we had to really crunch a lot of data and know what's being wasted when. And what's amazing is that data is available, like widely available. Every fruit produce distributor knows what they're going to throw away next year most of the time, right? So, and with that data, we created recipes. We had to create, product lines that make sense with these overstocks. So I had to create recipes knowing what was being wasted in the highest quantity, right? If I take clementine, for example, clementine is our biggest commodity. It's the ingredient that we use the most, which is awesome because it tastes I'm really happy that clementine is the one that's being the most wasted. Because if it was, let's say, beet, I think I would have less success with.
I love beet.
I don't need to, but not everyone. And clementine, everybody loves them, right? So, and there's a lot of clementine being wasted, especially here in Eastern Canada, in a certain period of the year. And then after that period, there's no more on the market. So we have to transform and process all of them in the right amount in the right time. And so we have to be very good at data in terms of forecasting our sales also to know how much we need to juice to make sure we have enough for the rest of the year. And that's, it's been taking us years to actually become really good at it, right? And we became excellent. And we're the best in the whole world to do that because we're the only one doing it.
With this show over the years, I've become very interested in packaging, and I realized that a lot of business owners are very particular about what they choose, what they prefer. Do you have any preferences for your products in terms of what packaging you use? Do certain packages help your drinks be more shelf stable than others? What does that look like?
We chose our packaging for sustainability. We have no choice. We're a sustainability mission. This is what we do. This is our core project. Loop Mission is not a juice company. We're a food waste reduction project aiming to eradicate food waste globally. This is what we do, right? So when came time to choose the packaging, it was very confusing to me because, I have the chance that my wife and the CEO of the company has a master in environmental science. So she's been educating me a lot, and she still is over the last few years. And when we started, I said, glass is going to be our packaging. And she said, no, I don't think so. And I said, yes, for sure it will be, because this is the most sustainable package out there. And it's also the most highest credibility packaging for any health, sustainable, conscious consumer. And we hired an outside firm that took all of the last LPA life cycle analysis studies that was done in the last 60 years. And they came after a month and a half, and they said, glass is the worst solution for you guys because it's the least sustainable packaging. And I was sure, like I didn't sleep for a day. I was like, what are they talking about? Like I've been thinking that glass is the best packaging forever, and everybody does, and everybody still does, right? Today, because we see all the plastic in the ocean, and there's so much bad rep about plastic. But then that's when I found out that not every plastic are the same and equals, right? And the life cycle analysis is the only real way to really assess the environmental impact of a packaging or any other thing, right? Or any industrial process or whatever. And we found out that glass, that PET number one was at a bigger rank than even aluminum in Canada because of a lot of transportation and the environmental aspect of creating aluminum is way higher than creating PET. Anyway, there's so much process in the life cycle analysis. But all of this to say that I was in front of a decision I needed to take. When you're an entrepreneur, you need to choose either the value or the money, and it often doesn't always go the same way, right? And I knew, I still think that if we were in glass, we will sell more of our product, you know,
Because of that perception.
because of that perception, right? And also the fact that glass is more premium, you know, it looks more premium also. So I also think that I could sell it for probably 50 cents more, just because of the premiumness feeling that the consumers can have when they look at a glass packaging as opposed to a PET packaging. So we faced that first decision right away, right? But of course we took the PET because we knew that was the best, and we decided to just go for it. And for sure, still today we receive an email every week or someone telling us, "I'm never going to buy your product because you were in plastic," and we're like, "Oh, well." And we send them the study. You know, they don't believe us because when it comes from me, I'm the capitalist with a company that says, no, this packaging is better. So it's harder to believe, right? But the study doesn't come from us. So those decisions we face every single day, right? Every single decision you take as a manufacturing company mostly will have an environmental impact. So you have to choose, okay, which one is going to be the least impactful, right? And that's going to make the most sense always.